so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We've got an audience and speakers joining us from all around the world today, and welcome as we continue block 7 of our epic My Nature Love Story event. If you've had the chance to join us on YouTube over the last day and a half, we've done, I think, 40 broadcasts now with people on 6 continents, 25 countries. It's been an incredible journey featuring some of the coolest conservationists, educators, storytellers from around the world as part of the Nature for All Global Love Fest. This has been 2 weeks of incredible events, showcases, art celebrations, campaigns, live programs. It's more than I can even address in one intro, of things featuring some of the best stories from some of the most amazing people around the planet working to protect habitats and to educate the public about them too. If you haven't had the chance to check out Nature for All Global's website and all the amazing partners and the network that they've built up over the last several years, I really encourage you to head there and check it out. There's so much on the go. They are doing such incredible work. Now, I'm not the host for this block. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Erin in just a second. She's one of the most enthusiastic, passionate, and amazing people I've ever had the chance to come across. And so, Erin, welcome in as our hostess with the mostest for the next hour and a half of programs. And you're going to have a good run for your money in terms of like sheer confidence with our first 2 speakers who are literally joining from school today. I think that's the first time we've had that during the Love Fest, and that's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Thanks, Jesse.
I will bring them in. I'll dip out myself and have a wonderful 30-minute chat.
Thanks, Jesse. And just before I introduce our 2 first wonderful speakers, I'll take a quick second to introduce myself. So my name is Erin Drage. I am the program officer for the International Union for Conservation of Nature World Commission on Protected Areas, which is a mouthful, the IUCN WCPA. And our commission works on bringing together experts from around the world on protected areas and conservation. So we geek out over protected areas all the time and try to advocate for more and better protected areas around the world. So that's who I am. And I have the great pleasure today of hosting some amazing speakers, including our first 2 speakers, Kean and Sunook. And so Kean and Sunook are going to give us a little introduction to themselves to start. I think you can give much better introductions than I ever could. So maybe Kean will go ahead with you and you can get started with them. Who are you and why are you here with us today?
I appreciate the introduction, but my name is Kean Dow. I am a junior at D.H. Conley High School in North Carolina. And basically what I do is I started an organization called Environmental Droners, which is a youth-led organization where we utilize technology such as drones to film polluted areas within our community. And then we take that footage and go to our local government, local organizations to help clean up these areas. We also partnered with East Carolina University to develop a litter locator web app, which is basically an international database that gives individuals in neglected areas and underrepresented communities the power and tool to represent themselves. And so using this, we have been able to go internationally as well. We have connections in Spain, Ukraine, South Korea, Uganda, and they're advertising this app as well. And they're also recreating environmental droners in those different countries. So we have gone international as well.
That is fantastic. Environmental droners. I'm excited to unpack a little bit more with both of you around what that is, but maybe Sunook, we can get a quick introduction from you too before we dive into it.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Sunook Yoon. I am 15 years old and I'm from Greenville, North Carolina with Kean. And currently I am a sophomore at Episcopal High School in a boarding school in Alexandria, Virginia. And like he said, we are the co-founders of the Environmental Droners. Our mission is to implement technology into the environment. And other than the drones and the app, we really want to create a platform for youth to raise their voices and really make a difference in the world, because I think it's really important to value other people's opinions, perspectives, and we really want to make a change in the world with everyone else in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. I wish I was this well-spoken when I was 15 years old, 15 and 16. But I mean, it's amazing to hear a little bit about what you've already accomplished at quite a young age. But especially in 2023, I think we're recognizing more than ever the power of youth and the importance of youth in these environmental spaces. And so I hope we can talk a little bit about that during this interview as well. But we like starting these Love Fest interviews with our nature love stories, which has been a big theme around Nature for All and this Love Fest, surely, in recent weeks and months and years. So I'd love to hear from both of you. What is your nature love story? How did you first fall in love with nature, and what is it that has driven you to pursue these environmental passions and starting initiatives at in high school when you could just be studying your history textbooks? What's your nature love story, Kean? Let's start with you.
So for my nature love story, the reason I fell in love with nature was realizing that nature is all around us, and it really is our building blocks of society. So it's all around us, and it provides us resources that we can't even fathom to create. And so it's amazing how much the ecosystem does for us and how nature provides for us. And the way I fell in love with it was realizing that people underappreciate it very much. And so especially going over COVID-19 and the use of a lot of restaurants and companies going to online and shipping, and there's just a exponential amount of proliferation within our community. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we need to do something about this. And so that's how we created our initiative of trying to film these polluted areas, trying to spread awareness so that people could understand how much of an impact this actually makes and the amount of people who don't care. And so we're just trying to bring light on the fact that people do care and that people should care. And I think one of my biggest inspirations was also Greta. She's a very big international superstar within the environmental community, and she really did inspire me in my action as an environmental advocate.
Oh, that's great to hear. And really interesting to hear that your love story started, a lot of people, their love story starts with their deep connection with wilderness, untouched, really beautiful natural environments. And for you, part of the way that you fell in love with nature was actually by seeing its demise, by seeing it being abused by humans. And I think more and more of Gen Z and future generations are going to have that relationship with nature if we do not change the narrative at this point. And it's really quite interesting to hear that that's how you started your love journey with nature. Maybe we'll go to Sunook. Could you share your nature love story with us?
Of course. So growing up as a kid, I used to go to the beaches all the time with my family and friends, and we used to have fun there, have like cookouts and just spend time with each other, like quality time. And now when we go there, there's always trash, plastic, straws, and just pollution all over the beaches. Not only the beaches, but other waterways, streets, and in our community. And just seeing that change throughout my life and seeing it like firsthand is just an experience that really like impacts you. So we decided to really make a change by implementing technology as well, as it was one of my interests, and really serving the underserved community and helping people really make a difference in the environment by creating like fun ideas and fun events.
Great. Oh, so interesting. And so you said you grew up going to the beach. Was that in Virginia, West Virginia area? Where did you grow up? In North Carolina. Sorry. Great.
Beach, yes.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my gosh, there's some really beautiful beaches down that way, and amazing ocean nature. So that's great. Okay. Now, so with the nature love story background and with some context as to how you both got into this, I think we really need to dive into how you started environmental droners. I mean, what an interesting concept, using the technology that's so accessible to us these days, that high schoolers can pick up a drone, can take these photos and videos and bring them to the attention of decision makers in society. It's a simple enough concept, but it must take a lot of work to get something like that off the ground. So I'd love to hear a little bit of the story of how this got started with the two of you, even how you two met and decided to pursue this together.
So I'll go ahead and go. And sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear the background or not. My class just got in the classroom. I'm in the office. But if you guys do hear anything, that's what's going on right now. But the reason we started environmental droners was, of course, that we saw the amount of proliferation within our community. And I think that Sunook and I really wanted to start it because of that, and that we saw that people didn't care. And so me and Sunook actually met through a nonprofit organization called Love a Sea Turtle, which is basically a foundation for youth to launch initiatives and projects within their own community. And so they've started a bunch of other organizations within their own communities, and we were just one of them. And so that's basically where we launched our platform and our initiative.
Great.
And I can
Sunook, did you want
continue.
to add something?
Oh, yes. So basically, after we met, we really wanted to address the problems in the environment, but also implement something fun or something engaging that our community can really do and raise awareness about. So then we applied for the Our Echo Challenge, where we placed top 10 in the world. And then from that, we got a lot of recognition. And then following that, we applied to many grants. We raised a lot of funds, and we bought the drone. We hosted many events, and we just tried to get our name out there. And after that, people have been reaching out to us to go film other places, to host cleanups, and really to help them out. So it's been like a really good opportunity for us to get involved in the community ever since.
And I just want to also add that, especially the beginning was absolutely the most like difficult because you have no idea where to start. And so it's you're asking questions like, what do I need to do? Like, how do I even start it? Like, what do I need to do first? And so I think that's why Sunook and I have been able to mentor kids from across the globe. And so by mentoring these kids, we've been able to show them the steps they need to take in starting a generosity project like Environmental Droners within their community so that we are expanding our effect not only in the United States, but internationally. And so we're trying to be mentors for these young youth around the globe to be leaders of tomorrow.
That is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing that beyond just the impact that using these drones and gathering this footage has, which in itself is so important, like you're saying, for bringing attention to politicians, for decision makers, and to try to really move the dial on our pollution problem. You're also providing this mentorship. So it's achieving two pretty significant goals at once, which is fantastic and a great opportunity for you to harness. And again, as relatively young people, and I think some of the youngest people, if not the youngest, that we're interviewing for this Love Fest, to have that intuition and that understanding of the impact that you can have beyond just the mandate and the goals of your initiative is pretty fantastic. I'm impressed, so impressed by both of you.
Thank you. And if we wouldn't have been able to do anything without our mentor, Mr. Dan Sokolovic, we realized how it is to really have someone mentor the way. And we also realized that some people don't have the opportunity or even the resources to even start an initiative or even speak out in their community. And we realized that it's like a problem in our world and we really need to address this. So we really wanted to give the opportunity and help other people.
That's a great point. I mean, the power of mentorship can't be understated, especially when it comes to tackling really big, complex, and at times exhausting problems like climate change and environmental degradation. And so I'm really happy to hear that you've had that great mentorship and now you're able to give some back to students, to youth around the world too. Okay, but I would love to talk a little bit about how Environmental Droners actually gathers this footage and what you do with you said you purchased a drone with some of the grants and that your model is being adopted elsewhere in the world. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what this model is. What does it look like when you're actually going out and collecting this footage? How do you choose where you're going to do it? Yeah, walk me through how Environmental Droners works from the bottom up. I'm so keen to hear more about it.
So basically, sometimes we'll have community members within our community or globally let us know that there are streets that are polluted with trash and like it looks terrible. And so they'll let us know. And so we'll go out with our drone and film it, edit the video, and we'll post on social media trying to spread awareness about this one location that is trashed. And so using this footage, we've also tried to go to local government and other local organizations to try to help them clean up these areas. So that's basically like our model from the ground up, but Sunook can also elaborate a little bit more. That's more like the basics.
Yes, and then in addition to filming areas in our community, how our app works is it's a global collaboration app, and we like to name it the solution to pollution. And during that app, and in that app, global users can document litter all across their community, and they can say what type of litter it is, where it's located, how long it'll take to clean up. And basically, we have a whole map of the world with trash points all over the world. And And basically what we're trying to do is encourage other people, environmental groups, and just youth leaders to come together and clean those trashes, but also raise awareness about the trashes in their community. So that's our big point of our app.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it's so that raise awareness piece is so interesting because it's pretty easy for us to tune it out. I mean, pollution has become such a widespread problem that when, I don't know, if I'm walking down the street in a big, busy city, I almost don't notice it anymore because we're becoming too accustomed to trash all over the place. And the idea of not only photos and videos, but then an app where we can have this collective kind of citizen science method of raising awareness about it, bringing it back to people's attention and reminding us all that this is not the norm and it's not okay to have this kind of pollution around. And okay, now let's mobilize to do something and clean it up. It's a really strong method, I think. You put the impetus on the individuals to want to clean it up. You know, you're not necessarily shaming them into saying, oh, you know, this, you need to be responsible for keeping this clean. It's more of a, we all know that we want a clean and healthy environment. So let's work together to get there. So I'd love to hear a little bit. So I definitely am understanding better now how you're using the drones, how you use this app as an additional piece. What are some of your calls to action that you have through the app? And when you identify a place that's really polluted, are there initiatives you recommend, or you are encouraging people to take individual action and go out with a trash bag and clean up some of this pollution? What do those calls to action look like?
So especially with the app, our main call to action was these community members within these underrepresented areas. They're going to take pictures of trash within the community and then post it, and then hopefully they'll inspire other people within their community to in turn clean up the trash with them. So it's basically trying to make a better community, being well connected. And also I think with Starling as well. Starling is like the international organization that I participate in to help with youth around the world create their own initiatives. And so with that, I've also been able to inspire these young youth by showing them that they're not the only youth that are actually trying to make a difference. And so by inspiring these youth as well, I've been able to expand my message to youth around the globe, and hopefully they'll digest that message and try to do something with it as well.
That's great. Sunook, do you have any other thoughts on calls to action from this?
Yes, I just wanted to emphasize how we really want to implement innovative solutions, and that includes like social media, but also word of mouth, and just being able to engage with your community, I think is really important. And I think knowing about the problem is half the issue. So that's why we have to really raise awareness again. And I feel like the issues just go unnoticed. So we must like post on social media, talk with other people, talk to government officials. And I think it's really important to really take action and start the process.
Yeah, totally. I love this emphasis that you have on community really taking ownership over it, because we're in such we're inundated all the time with information, right? Information overload in 2023, which is an amazing thing, but it does make it really difficult to focus on specific topics, especially important ones like pollution and environmental degradation. And to have the community take it and harness it and encourage others to take small, more manageable steps towards cleaning up their neighborhoods, their communities, it seems like a much more effective way of inspiring action instead of this constantly trying to get a message from top down. It's more of a bottom up approach to cleaning up one's neighborhood, which I think is really, really important in this world where we're always fighting to keep people's attention on one topic. You know, there's just so many other things that people could focus on to better their community, and maybe they're all important, or maybe as youth especially, we tend to get very overwhelmed by all of the things that need to be fixed in this world. And so creating this positive spin on it and allowing community to build it up together, I would imagine is quite an effective way to implement real change, even if it's small, piece by piece.
Yes, and then I really agree on that point. So that's why we really try to teach youth as well on how to like help the environment, but also how to make it fun. And that's why like this summer we will be hosting summer camps on how to fly drones, how to navigate it, and
Oh,
just
wow.
ways that they can help the environment on their own. And I think it's really like unique how we can, really talk with the youth and really show them that it's not like a bad thing that we need to fix, but it's something that we want to fix. And that's something we really want to implement to everyone's lives.
I love that. The way that you said that we want it to be fun. We have too many chores to do in our day-to-day lives, and we don't want environmental stewardship to be a chore. It should be fun. It should feel good. It's always more fun when you have a community to do it with and to share successes with. So I love to hear that that's an emphasis of what you guys are doing together through this organization. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit here about how you've seen it implemented around the world, because you said this started as more of an initiative in your local communities in the United States, and you've seen it expand to be adopted elsewhere around the world. What does that look like? Maybe some success stories that you've seen elsewhere?
It's really inspiring to see that our action is making a difference and that it can be replicated. So by watching us try to teach our skills to these underrepresented areas, especially with the summer camp, he was predominantly filled with underrepresented areas within a community near us. And so by teaching these kids how to fly a drone and how to make their own initiative is really inspiring, because a lot of them actually do want to make a difference. Especially with our international communities, they contacted me as well. They're like, hey, like we need help. We want some help with how we can clean up our environment. And so that's why I'm helping them recreate an initiative that has been successful in the past. And so that's inspiring to me, extremely inspiring.
Absolutely. Yeah, that idea of empowering youth to be able to take action, we're not telling them that they have to, but instead telling them, we know you want to, and here's some tools and some ways that you can do so, and reminding them that it is within each of their power to harness that desire to save the world, and to save the environment that they're seeing degraded. So Sunook, do you have any thoughts on that too, on this international expansion and how you've seen this adopted elsewhere?
Yes, it's really great how to see youth just like us have the opportunity that we had to really make a difference, but also target the problems in their own communities. And it's really interesting to see other people's perspectives, opinions, and problems, but also solutions that they have on their own. And not only internationally, but as I attend a boarding school next to DC, I have been in contact with the DC youth mayor, with other political figures, and I've been trying to really make a difference through governmental change. And I think it's really important not only to help the community directly, but help other people through laws and really action that can really change the world.
Fantastic. I wholeheartedly agree that I love to see how you're targeting so many different groups here. You're talking about individuals and youth and how they can take action and providing mentorship and that empowering piece, but you're also trying to connect it to decision makers who are often not as connected with the on the ground community movement side of environmental activism, and you're making deliberate actions to get this drone footage into their hands, to, I'm sure, bring the app to their attention and share some of the the data that you're collecting through this app, tracking trash and just saying, look at how widespread this problem really is. So that's so important. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the other initiatives that you've been involved with. You said you had gotten some grants, and I know you had been part of maybe the Earth Echo Challenge. And can you talk a little bit about some of those initiatives and how they've contributed to the growth of your organization and maybe your development in the space as young environmental activists?
Absolutely. So starting off with the Earth Echo challenge, it was purely out of the box. It was very we were like, oh, let's just try this idea, and so we submitted it, and it happened to have gotten top 10 in the world. And so like, okay, like maybe this is the actual idea we can follow. And so we started following it, and we didn't get top 3, but we did get People's Choice. So people liked our initiative the most, which is very nice. But as soon as we didn't win it, we were like, oh, like, we don't know like how we're gonna be able to fund this. And so we decided to go out of our way and find micro grants. And so we were able to get $500 there, and then $750 from Love a Sea Turtle, and money from all over the place. And eventually that was how we jump-started Environmental Donors into action. And then also through other grants and activities that we've done, like I know Sunook is on a youth council called the Blue Bow Sea. And I'm also on the Starling Initiative cohort, which is an international organization where they select 50 individuals from around the world to help them grow their generosity projects. And that's how I've been able to connect with youth around the world. And then also we have gotten money from Prudential, Emerging Visionaries from Ashoka. And so we get to go to New Jersey pretty soon to get more, hopefully pitch and get more money for our initiative and starting more initiatives around the world.
Congratulations. Wow. Sunook, anything you'd like to add to that? I mean, it sounds like some amazing achievements so far.
Yes, of course. So back to what he said about like how I'm part of the youth council for the Future Blue Youth Council of Bowseat, and being able to engage with youth from around the world has been a really humbling but also really great experience. And I've been able to work with their separate communities, their clubs and organizations. And in addition to that, Kean and I have been a part of many conferences, summits, and we have spoken to many individuals, both young and old, and across all ages. And I really think it's important to talk to other people and really learn their story and also talk about our story. And I think the greatest thing to do is learn from other people's perspectives and not only your own. So that's a lesson we've learned throughout our time with our initiative.
That is great words of wisdom to almost wrap us up here. We've just got a couple of minutes left. And so I'd love, as kind of the closing remarks here, I'd love to hear from both of you. We have a very intergenerational audience watching the Love Fest this week and participating in these events. And you two have already mentioned that you really do believe in the power of youth in this movement, and you've been inspired by the likes of Greta Thunberg. And if you could leave us with a final thought on why do youth matter in this space? Why do we need young people engaging in this fight to save planet Earth?
I think youth are a humongous component into the survival of our planet and our habitats and ecosystems, because I think the environment was often neglected by our older generations. And so all this has been put down on the youth. And so if the youth don't do anything, who will? No one will. And so, of course, we've had older mentors who have guided us and helped us along. And of course, there are other few select who are very compassionate about the environment. But if youth don't have action and do what needs to be done to help save the environment, I don't know who will. And so youth are a massive component in this, and just older adults being able to help their children and finding that passion as well. I think there's still things that the older generation can do to help youth move along their initiatives. And then youth just need to know that they are the last line of defense for our environment.
Thanks so much, Kean. And Sunook, what would your final words of wisdom be on the power of youth in saving nature?
One thing I learned was throughout my time in my initiative, it's really hard for youth to really speak out because some people doubt you, question you, and that's what happened with our initiative. But we realized that when youth talk, people listen, and it's really important that young people really show that they're willing to save the environment. And if you really think about it, everyone works to have a better world, better life. So might as well just have the youth work together with the adults and really create a really strong world and environment together. And I feel like using that youth power and youth voice and youth advocate is really important, especially nowadays.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you. On that very inspiring final note, I think I will release you both back to go to school since you're in the middle of your school day right now. But I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us. It's really great to hear about your initiative and all of the mentorship and amazing youth empowerment work that you're working on. So thank you for your time, and hope you have a great rest of your day, both of you.
Thank you for having us. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll see you Soon, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully, I think we'll cross paths soon. Thanks, guys. So I do see that we have our next speaker here who's about to join. Great. Hi, Toby Plant. Welcome to the Nature for All Love Fest.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Very, very happy to have you. So I love you've got your OceanWise background on, because Toby Plant is the online learning manager for OceanWise, and we're going to have the next 30-ish minutes to hear from you about nature love stories and the importance of education in this space. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about what you're working on. So maybe, Toby, if you could start with just a quick introduction to who you are and what being an online learning manager means over at OceanWise.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erin. So before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda nations, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people that make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. So I'm actually located in Calgary, which is under snow at the moment. We had a huge snowfall, about 30 centimeters last night. So winter wonderland. But
Toby, that's
yes.
That's great. I didn't realize you were in Calgary. I'm in Canmore, just down the road. So for
wow.
folks who don't know,
so you know exactly how much snow we got.
I'm only about an hour away from where Toby lives, and we did get a lot of snow here over the last day. So thanks for that introduction. That's great. Yeah, so a little bit about OceanWise and the online learning platform.
Absolutely. So yes, my name is Toby Plant. I'm the online learning manager at OceanWise. So for those of you that don't know who OceanWise are, you should definitely check us out. Go to ocean.org. There's my plug for the session. But yes, we're an ocean conservation organization based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And our mission is really to protect and restore the world's ocean. So we do that through a variety of different initiatives, ranging from lovely whales over here, where we've got a seaforestation initiative, which is actively planting kelp along the BC coastline and in Chile now as well. And we've got a plastics initiative, which look into the plastic problem, especially with the ocean and microfibers and microplastics and their effects on organisms and the effects that it have on the environment. And we have the seafood, probably what OceanWise is most best known for across Canada anyway. When you buy some either a tin of tuna, or if you go to a restaurant, you might see on the menu this little logo, such a quite big logo, which means that it's a sustainable source of fish. It's been harvested sustainably. So yes, we do lots of different sorts of work. I'm in the youth initiative, which kind of suggests focuses on youth. And I just caught the tail end of your chat with Kean and Sunook. Fantastic. That is what we're all about, is empowering youth to take action on behalf of the ocean. So I live within the online realm. So we basically reach out to thousands of youth over the course of a year, and really increase awareness of some of the threats that are facing the ocean. So we focus on three main threats. There are obviously tons and tons, but the three that we focus on, they're pretty big. So it's climate change, ocean pollution, and overfishing. So those are the things that we're really focused on. And our job in the online learning department is to really increase awareness of these issues, but also just spread the passion of the ocean, the ecosystems, all the species that live there, and we kind of cater to K-12 in that kind of school age. Yeah, so that's kind of what we do. Lots of different workshops. Yeah, lots of different things.
Fantastic. That's a great introduction. And my head is spinning with questions I want to ask you about the online learning platform. But before we dive into the online learning tools themselves, I mean, you, Toby Plant, have chosen a career in environmental conservation, stewardship, empowering young people, inspiring folks to take action on ocean conservation. And I'd love to hear what your nature love story is. How did you fall in love with nature? What put you on this track of working in environmental conservation?
It's a great question. And I was thinking about this, and I don't think there is like one moment that I can really pin on, which I was like, this is what I'm going to do forever. It's been a journey for sure. So a little backstory and kind of my background, and I kind of pieced together and where I am now. I obviously grew up in England. You might be able to tell from my accent. I grew up in the countryside, in a rural kind of area. So I think, and I was near to the ocean, and I think during kind of I'm dating myself a little bit now, the mid 90s, we didn't have the internet and there wasn't too much stuff on TV. I think we had 4 channels on TV. So really my entertainment was going outside in the garden and investigating what was going on and building camps and going for walks and that kind of thing in my surrounding area, and then heading to the beach and exploring really. So I built like a deep passion for nature and the love of nature. And really, I think it was through play. And I know it's a massive strategy, play-based learning, because it works. It's connecting youth to their environment through play. And I did it kind of by accident for out of boredom, really. But that's I think I kind of built an appreciation and a love for nature, for more of an entertainment and more inquisitive, like asking questions, what's going on here, and why is that bird chirping, or kind of building up connections there. But I think the number one inspiration for me, and you've probably heard this quite a lot, is Sir David Attenborough. I think for me, growing up with him on TV, exploring the different ecosystems across the world, and then putting in kind of the threats and more so at the moment, there's been a real spotlight shone on the work that we have to do. But I think it was fundamental to kind of where I ended up. And watching penguins and elephants, and I wanted to be involved. I wanted to do something. So I went to school for marine biology, kind of took my passion for the ocean and nature and science, and then got to go over the world with it. So I went to Indonesia to do some diving. I did my dissertation on coral reefs and angelfish behavior, and basically how their behavior is affected by human influence. And it just blew my mind. And I don't think anything. I think some people are very passionate about like space or automated cars, the automatic ones that drive themselves. But for me, it's nature. I just look at it and the things that happen. It blows my mind. So I kind of followed it, and I went traveling around the world. It was funny. It's I haven't thought about this really. It was mainly guided by what animal I wanted to see next as to where I went. So it was Australia and Asia, and then made my way over to Canada and here now. So yes, and when I got to Canada, it was kind of a fresh start, and I had all this. I'd worked as a marine biologist in England, but I didn't really like sitting in a lab. I liked the research and the science part of it, but really wanted to connect more with the conservation side and inspiring people to take action on the beautiful things that I've seen across the world. So sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded, kind of convoluted way, but I've made my way to Canada. I'm in Calgary now, and I'm working remotely for Oceanwise in Vancouver.
That's fantastic. I mean, there's so much in there that gives us hints as to the power that a nature love story really has. I love what you said about chasing animals around the world and pinning your travels on the kind of natural phenomenon and the wildlife species that you wanted to see. It's especially when you contrast it with technological advancements, artificial intelligence, cars that drive themselves. It's like, yeah, those things are really amazing, and it's incredible. But you go and you look at one little mossy log in the forest, and that is also magical. There is so much power in nature, and the ways that natural systems work are truly mind-blowing. I think you said mind-blowing once or twice. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And something that you just said there, I don't think that you have to, I mean, I've been very lucky to go around the world and seen things that I have, but I don't think you have to do that. You don't have to go and chase the megafauna, the whales, the elephants, the tigers, all of those things that make it on National Geographic. You do, and you can just go to your local park and see a mossy log. And if you just sit and look at it, you'll see all of the different things. 30 seconds is all you'll need. You'll see how insects interact with each other. You'll see eggs or fungus and all the different interactions. And it kind of reminded me of, I have a 3-year-old, and she is like, she's amazing, but she has really kind of reminded me to ask questions, because she's at the why stage, so she does it a lot. We'll be at the park and why is that bird chirping, or why is that happening there? And it really kind of opens your eyes, and you start asking yourself, like, I don't know, let's have a look. Oh, there's a hawk up there, so maybe that's why it's chirping. But yes, I think those moments where you can just focus on, it might be a mossy log or a stem of a plant with aphids, and you can see ants milking the aphids, and that's just in our back garden. And it's incredible.
I love what you said there about your daughter asking all these questions. I think 3-year-olds have some real wisdom that we need to tap into as adults.
It's a good reminder. Yeah. I mean, the whys do get a little much sometimes, but you quickly run out of, like, I actually have no idea why the elevator goes up this way and it goes that way, so let's find out. But that inquisitive nature is something that I think is we can definitely learn from them.
Absolutely. Well, this is a fantastic introduction to your love story and a little bit of how you got into the space, and we're already naturally moving towards the idea of learning and curiosity in nature, and how education plays into nature conservation and to protecting the natural world. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how the online learning platform at OceanWise actually harnesses this. How do you provide education for the natural world in a very disconnected from nature space? You know, you're looking at a computer screen. You're not usually surrounded by spectacular natural world, non-human nature while you're on the computer. How do you guys overcome that? And what does this online learning look like at OceanWise?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you've highlighted the biggest challenge with online anything is that kind of disconnection. So it's overcoming that, and there are plenty of ways now. So first of all, our programs are all they're all based in science with the curriculum in mind, the BC curriculum in mind. So they have the outcomes that teachers want and things. But your question was how do we engage youth, which is fantastic, and it's actually I'm smiling thinking about it because it's the most fun part of it. It's making it entertaining, making it a game, and there are tons and tons of ways you can do that. So I spoke about megafauna. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. Megafauna a little bit earlier. One thing that we do to kind of grab attention or interest from kids are using ambassador species. So if we're talking about the effects of human impacts on coral reefs, we have a program that is kind of targeted towards grade 2 or 3, and we put the children in the kind of role of they're investigating this coral reef and what's going on, and their mission is to find the superhero that's missing. So there's kind of like this narrative that we build through, and they go and meet different organisms on the reef. So we've got lots of HD videos of, say, mantis shrimps, which are fantastic. If you've never seen them, they're incredible. They can make the kind of ocean water boil through the power of their punch. It's pretty cool. But they ask them questions, they give them clues as to who this superhero is. And it's a story. So it's kind of like a storybook. We go through the different pages, and it's kind of self-directed by the class. We give them kind of student-led discussions. So they have a really big role. It's not just kind of what we're doing here, where we're just kind of sitting and watching there. Hey, look over there, or can we go over this way? We want to talk to the sea turtle. And they're all doing body breaks and movements and things like that. So plenty of tactics to engage students, even if it is online and through this kind of digital medium. It isn't natural, but I think you can convey the wonders of the natural world through, as I said, videos or stories. We also have experts at Oceanwise that work in either in the plastic labs, the whales team, all throughout. So we get their findings and we kind of put them through there, distill them, and make them ready for the audience as well. But yeah, lots of games. There are lots of tools as well. We live in a world, and I think the two gentlemen before me were talking about drones and technology. Technology, we're living at the forefront of it. It is so hard to keep up with it. Every day there's something new that's coming up, or another tool to engage youth with, be it collaboration methods or clouds or games, quizzes, virtual reality. Really, things are coming out day by day, and it is also mind-blowing, the things that you can use to engage youth with nature online. So yeah, lots of different tactics. I think the main one, though, is including the audience in our programs, so they don't just feel like they're being projected to, and asking them to discuss with their neighbor, or what things do you find in your community, that kind of thing.
Amazing. I love the visuals that came up when you were talking about some of these videos that you have them working through and getting to see, I imagine while virtual platforms might have the challenge of not being in a natural environment, a non-human nature environment, they do mean that you can see nature that you would otherwise not be able to see. You can experience things, you can connect with. When it comes to the ocean, especially, you can connect with students who live nowhere near the ocean, but still have a really important role to play in ocean stewardship, right?
You've got it, Erin. You've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, absolutely. With digital education comes accessibility. And that's not just where you are in the world, but if you're able, maybe you don't have the means to get a school bus to go on a field trip, or you live outside the catchment area for somewhere that you want to go. So really it opens doors to anyone everywhere. Time zones and languages are sometimes a barrier, but really there's been it's a game changer. We could never learn from distance. And I think COVID and the pandemic really kind of brought that to light as the power of online education. And really, if for Oceanwise, it's a massive strength because we get to increase our reach and impact and the awareness and the behavioral change of the people. I mean, that's why we do it, is to bring up the awareness of some of the issues. It could be pollution, climate change, overfishing, and really kind of inspire action. Awareness and then behavior change and then action, either individual or as a community level, so important. So yeah, it's a great tool to reach people.
Definitely. And the other thing that I really picked up on when you were describing how your online learning platform at Oceanwise works was something that Kean and Sunook had also spoken about, is the idea of making it fun. This shouldn't feel like hard work to be an environmental steward or to learn about the natural environment that we are so inherently connected to. Instead, it becomes a fun journey. I loved you talking about, you're on an expedition with us. You're on this fun, almost video game like environment where students, I'm sure, really buy into that kind of fun, engaging, interactive platform.
For sure. Yeah, the video game thing, we've got elements of youth. So there's one program, it's called Poop Drones and Hydrophones. So it's all the tools that the researchers at Oceanwise use to observe and monitor whales off the coast. So as they go through, they're put in the seat of, you're an Oceanwise researcher and you've got to interview these people. And there's a portion where they learn from indigenous folks in the lower mainland, and they kind of compare the oral history to what they've seen and observed to what's kind of there now and the migrations of orca in and around the lower mainland, but also the game element, the gamification, which is so strong because it's so engaging. We've got they basically unlock tools to go and monitor the whale. So they'll open a chest and they'll unlock a hydrophone. What's a hydrophone? Oh, go and put it in the ocean and find out. And here's Valerius talking about her work on belugas and the importance of I guess it's clean ocean in terms of noise pollution and boat traffic. So yeah, it's definitely a tactic that we use, and it makes it really fun. And the gamification of it doesn't feel like learning. They come away and they're like, "Whoa, I really love that. That was really fun."
So
but I also know
cool.
X, Y, Z about this and what I can do to help these whales off the coast as well.
Oh, that's amazing. How neat. Well, and one thing you had started talking about there before as well was the idea that, okay, you've got their attention, they're having fun, they're really interested in these whales, and then you hit them with the why, the what next, what action can be taken. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like from OceanWise's perspective and what you're hoping the students get out of this beyond just the general education, but maybe the actual next steps after they've learned about ocean conservation or a species or whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we've hooked them with the games, we've kind of hopefully, and a lot of our kind of post surveys show that they are now more aware of some of the issues that either species or the ecosystem or the whole ocean might be facing. So once they're more aware, and then hopefully they're more passionate about those ambassador species that we've helped along the way, the sharks, the whatever it might be that we've used as kind of the, I say hook again. So once they're aware and they're passionate, we then give them certain actions at the end of the program or all the way through what they can do on an individual scale. And just from your conversations with Kean and Sunook, there is, and research has found this as well, and there's research coming out all the time, there is an increasing amount of eco-anxiety amongst youth, of like adults putting pressure on them and saying like, you need to do this. And I really liked how they said like, no, we want to do this. It's in our best interest. So really trying to relay that messaging and the actions in a way of that isn't scary and that isn't like overbearing, and hopefully by giving these youth some real world actions. So we start online and then go out into the world, into your community, and this is what you can do. And we give them an array. So it's kind of like you can start here or here or here, different entry points. So it's not just a one size fits all for everyone. But something that we like to do is, especially for our programs that we do that are region specific, say we're doing something in Saskatchewan, we'll talk about actions that are applicable in their areas. So it won't be when you're out on a boat on the ocean, turn your motor off when you're arriving at it, or go this speed, because it's not relevant. So it'll be things like wetlands, are there local kind of water bodies, or marshes, ponds, that kind of thing. But also tying plastic is huge, and unfortunately it's a connector for all of the watersheds in the ocean. So anything that we talk about the ocean and ocean conservation, it is applicable to anyone within a watershed, which is anyone, because it's the plastics obviously travel through the waterways all the way down to the ocean, and get smaller and smaller and smaller as they get there, and can then be engulfed by organisms and things. So yes, so place-based actions are really big. What you can do in your area, connecting youth to a network. We're not the only conservation organization, as you know. So who are in your local area? Who can support you? What can you do here? And actions. Yes, and again, I'll say ocean.org again. If you head on there, there are, oh, you are so quick. That is amazing. there will be a list of actions. You can go and have a look at our blogs, take a look at some of the initiatives and what you can do. Sustainable seafood is a really easy one. Look for this symbol, and it kind of does the hard work and the research for you for kind of what is a sustainable seafood. Yeah, I think that's kind of how we do it. And then, yeah, it's all about making youth feel like they have an impact, and that also alleviates some of that climate stress and anxiety of like, oh, I can actually do stuff. Shoreline cleanups are a massive one, and you can sign up for a shoreline cleanup on the website. If you're not 18, you can also go with your parents, or there are groups led by them as well, and that's really cleaning up the shoreline and some of the plastic and debris that would make its way into the ocean.
That is fantastic. Those shoreline cleanups that are an initiative that I've seen a little bit about, but you always see so much great community coming together, people really enjoying themselves, having fun, but seeing the direct impact of what you're doing and how you're trying to steward the environment is such a rewarding way to be able to engage with environmental conservation, to, like you said, alleviate some of that eco anxiety or that pressure that comes with knowing the world needs a lot of help to get cleaned up. But I love the idea of a shoreline cleanup, or if someone's not near the ocean at all, a creek bed cleanup, a cleanup in their watershed. It all is ultimately tied to the ocean, which is something OceanWise does a great job, I think, of conveying. Is you don't have to live on the coast to be a coastal steward and to be an ocean steward. And I love that you touched on that a little bit with the example of Saskatchewan and a watershed, I think. So that is so important. And so we've only got a few minutes left, but I know this idea of a nature love story that we're talking about with Love Fest this week, you shared your personal nature love story with us, which we appreciate so much. And I think everybody has their own individual nature love story, and that's part of what we're trying to highlight and celebrate here. But those nature love stories always start somewhere. And with learning programs like the online learning community that OceanWise is hosting, it might be the beginning of somebody's nature love story in a lot of ways, right? I can see that. It's like, I love the passion that you bring for this. And so I wonder if you had a message for folks looking to get youth, young kids, especially your target audience that the online learning program provides. Could you give a quick plug, a sell for how one might engage with the OceanWise online learning platform, how someone becomes involved and takes advantage of all of the amazing programming that you guys are pulling together over at OceanWise?
Yeah, for sure. So if you are either an educator or a parent or even youth, and you're like, oh, this sounds awesome, you can head over to ocean.org. I think it's /explore, but I'm sure Jesse can do a better job at finding that link. Yeah, so I would have a look at that. We have tons of different offerings, and every now and again we'll have certain events. So like public digital beach walks, where we'll go out on the beach, and we do a lot with Exploring by the Seashore Pants, which will broadcast a lot of our programs across the nation, actually across the world. So have a look on our Twitter as well for upcoming events. And if you want to be a part, you can also email me, education@ocean.org. If you're interested or have any questions about anything that we've spoken about today, feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with someone in my team or part of the wider team. If you're interested in anything else that I've spoken about, yeah, we're all for collaboration and kind of accessibility. So feel free to email me your questions.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Toby. That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that point of contact for folks, because I'm sure those watching the interview will have lots of questions and curiosities and hopefully want to engage with this amazing content that you and your team are working on and sharing with students and those lucky adults who get to also engage with it around Canada and the world. So I think with that, we'll let you get going. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Toby, I really, before I let you go and before you bring in Tamara to wrap up, I just wanted to say for the two of you, the moment you started, we had a member of one of our YouTube community mention that they're watching from Liberia, which is the best, most distant audience member we've had the whole time.
Amazing.
So I just love this about the Love Fest is you get little notes like that. And I wanted to bring that in and highlight it for you guys. So there you go. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Erin, and nice to see you, Jesse. And I'll leave you to it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Toby. Have a great rest of your day.
Erin, I'm going to dip back out and bring in Tamara. She's, again, had a little bit of connection difficulty yesterday, but she's back as a world-class nature photographer. So I'm going to turn it over to you two. Have fun for our last 30 minutes before we wrap up our block together.
Fantastic. Well, lucky me that Tamara was having some connectivity issues for the last internet slot, because that means I have the pleasure of getting to chat with you today. Welcome, Tamara. Great to see you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you for having me, and my deepest apologies for yesterday. I mean, technology can be amazing, but it can sometimes suck big time.
Absolutely. Technology can certainly fail us sometimes. Yeah. So no worries at all. And like I said, I am quite happy to have you here in my time slot today. So welcome. Jesse briefly mentioned that, Tamara, you're a world-class photographer. I imagine from what I hear, you're also very humble and not always as forward speaking about the amazing achievements that you've had, but I've seen your photography and it's exceptional. It's so beautiful and is so powerful in sharing nature love stories in each photograph that you take, and that connection between humans and the natural world. So looking forward to unpacking some of that with you today. I wonder if we might start, Tamara, with just a brief introduction from yourself and who you are and how you landed here in the Nature for All Love Fest.
Sure. Well, thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it. Well, I started as a conservation photographer a few years back. Well, actually, I always wanted to dedicate my life to photography and conservation because, you know, I grew up watching all these documentaries on Animal Planet, the Discovery Channel, all these photographs in great magazines, and they inspired me a lot. So I figured that images are actually very powerful to inspire people to work towards nature and wildlife conservation. And so I really wanted to do the same with my art. So, you know, one thing led to the other, and I think it was back in 2020 or 2019, something around there, when the pandemic struck, that, you know, we were all locked up, and the only way to get my work out there was through different digital platforms. And I saw the contest for the IUCN CEC commission that I could apply, and that led me to getting to know everything about Nature for All and Cities with Nature. And since I had a project about Mexico City's wildlife that is about environmental education through photography, I thought the project would interest Nature for All and Cities with Nature, and so I applied to be a partner, and that's the story of how I ended here.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Tamara. And so that's the story of how you ended here and how you're working with Nature for All. But at the very beginning there, you started with, I've always wanted to work at the intersection of conservation and photography. Could you, and you will have heard from our other Love Fest interviews that we've been doing, we're asking people about their love story with nature. You know, how did you first fall in love with nature? How did you end up with this connection with nature? And it sounds like you have always wanted to work in this profession. Can you tell us a little bit more about what brought you to conservation more generally?
Yeah, of course. I guess I've always been in love with nature. Thankfully, my mother has always been also a nature lover, and she kind of educated me with that principle. You know, that trees could feel pain and that you should be kind to them and don't pluck plants because they are important, and be kind to animals, you know, those kinds of things that it may sound a bit emotional for the scientific community, but I think that's what we are missing as a society, you know, that emotional connection to nature. Sure, data, everything like that is very important, but our emotions towards nature are also very important. And as such, that's what looking at all these documentaries and photographers, the work photographers were doing with animals and nature, that inspired me, their love connection towards these beings. So I always grew up surrounded by plants, by animals. You know, I was the weird kid at school that wanted to read everything she could about wildlife, about nature, ecosystems. So much that I was actually a little bit more advanced than my class when it came to natural sciences, because I had already read about them. And I've always felt a very deep connection towards nature, and I just couldn't fathom how society and so many people could just not feel anything towards it. It was just so natural to me that I just didn't understand the lack of a connection with nature. So when I was in high school, and the time came when deciding what do you want to do for the rest of your life, which I think is still a big decision to make when you're 17 or 18 years old. But I just knew I wanted to, because I also always loved photography. My father gave me a Polaroid instant camera when I was like 6, 7 years old. So I would be, taking photos about my toys, my plants, my animals, and it was, everything came together. And so when I was in high school, I decided that I wanted to study photography, but also combine it with science and do some conservation work like the photographers that had inspired me. So
amazing. Oh, that's fantastic. I appreciate you taking us back and walking us through that story. It sounds like, your love of nature has been really inherent. Like you said, you just couldn't imagine why people might not feel that deep love for nature. But really happy to hear that, and excited to dive into a little bit of where that has led your career. And
Sure.
I guess I'd love to start by asking you broadly, what is your photography focus? We know you're a conservation photographer, but how would you sell us your photography right now? What makes your photography stand out? What's the goal of your photos? And yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about it.
Sure. Well, that's a tough question. Actually, I think I sometimes even question that myself. I focused mainly on wildlife conservation photography, and I've tried doing close, intimate portraits of species that may not be as well known or as charismatic as, say, an elephant or a lion. And my aim is to, through those kinds of images, not only educate my audience about this not very well known species, but also I want them to connect with the animal that they are looking at through my images, so that they can not only learn about them, but feel something towards them. I'm not saying they have to fall in love with them like I do, but at least feel a bit of empathy and respect towards these species, because I think that's what we're lacking. I mean, basic respect towards nature. However, recently I have also focused on people, also working for different kinds of conservation efforts, because you have to find a way for your work to stand out. So there are a lot of amazing wildlife photographers out there. Some are even a lot better than me. But in order to tell a story, to inspire people, or to create an educational project, you also have to tell the stories of people that are fighting for life, for protecting a natural area, an ecosystem, that are protesting, that are activists. Even though activism sometimes gets negative connotations or stuff like that, I think activism is the active fight for conservation, as its name suggests. So I have been working with indigenous communities also, because they are on the front lines, at least here in Mexico, on protecting ecosystems. And I've also tried to tell their stories in the most inspirational, respectful way possible, so that people can now not only connect to the animals in question, but also to the people that are risking their lives for protecting these animals and their ecosystems, because I think that way the cycle is complete, and you can tell an even more compelling, more inspirational story than with just a pretty portrait of an animal or a plant.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And it's interesting to hear a little bit of the journey, starting with wildlife, but then recognizing that the people have the humans have such an important role to play in terms of shifting the dial and actually affecting conservation change and protecting the wildlife that are so at risk. And I love that you see that connection and the need for both, photographs and art of the wildlife themselves, and also of the humans who are working so hard to protect the wildlife. And yeah, so I would love to hear, I know So you had said you had connected with Nature for All through IUCN Commission on Education and Communications, IUCN CEC. And I believe some of the work that you had been doing had been around urban centers and wildlife in urban areas. Could you tell us a little bit about what that project is and what your photography looks like around that's quite different than, big wild megafauna species? So yeah, what is that urban nature photography work that you're doing?
Sure. Well, it's a project I started back in 2017. It's about the urban wildlife that survives in Mexico City. If our audience or if you have never been to Mexico City, it's one of the largest, most polluted and populated cities in the world. And, combining like Mexico City and wildlife, it may sound absurd to many people because it's some people have told me, what, there's wildlife here besides rats? I don't believe you. And actually, because of the geographic location of the city, which is near the neovolcanic axis, and it has so many forests, and actually more than half of its territory is still conformed by natural ecosystems like forests, wetlands, grasslands, a lot of different and endangered ecosystems, of course. You have a wide variety of species. According to the environmental authorities, regarding to wildlife, there are about 2,254 different wildlife species just in this area. And a lot of them are endemic and a lot of them are endangered also. So the project started when I was walking back home one day and I found a dead opossum on the sidewalk. Where I live, thankfully there's a lot of green areas and there's wildlife like opossums, ring-tailed cats, a lot of birds, lizards, snakes. But my neighbors are not really aware of these animals, how beneficial they are, that they are actually not harmful. And sadly, I'm also certified as a wildlife handler and rehabilitator. So when I found the possum, I started looking for signs of maybe it had been attacked by a dog or maybe it had been run over by a car. And I was also worried that maybe it was a female and it was carrying babies. Thankfully, it was a male with no babies, but the sad part is that it showed signs of having been poisoned by one of my neighbors, of course, which is very sad because, these animals are regarded as ugly, as huge rats that are gonna eat your dogs and give you rabies. And, that's very far from the truth, but that's the point. I mean, the regular population does not know anything about this because the scientific information regarding wildlife is not readily available or easy to access for your regular population. And even more so in a country like Mexico, where there's still a large percentage of illiterate people, sadly. So when the anger passed, I started thinking, okay, so as a conservation photographer, what can I do to help both my neighbors understand about the ecosystems that we live with, the species we coexist with, and to help wildlife? What can I do as a photographer? I am not a biologist, I'm not a scientist. So I decided, okay, but I know about biology, I know about the science surrounding these species, and I'm good with making pretty images, so maybe I can combine both. So I started this project that is called Mexico City's Wildlife, which its main focus is to try and document as many species as possible. I don't think I'm gonna live long enough to photograph the 2,000 whatnot species, but at least a few of them. Mostly maybe the most misunderstood or the most charismatic or known ones. And try to make them look as pretty as possible so that people can connect with them and to break the barrier of prejudice. If they see an ugly animal, they might not want to learn about them. But if you photograph them in a cutesy way, kind of friendly manner, people will be more interested in knowing which animal is that and what's the deal with them. So after 2 years of documenting a vast amount of species, I started teaching workshops at schools. So I would bring presentations, the photographs, and different kinds of artistic and ludic materials, so that we could have fun with children, even stuffed animals about these species. And we started just talking, instead of having a boring science class, it was just like a talk. We're talking about animals, we're talking about nature. Children are very receptive towards these kinds of subjects, and they actually know a lot about them. It's very surprising, actually, and very enriching to also learn from them. And also part of the project is holding different kinds of exhibits with the photographs in different kinds of public venues so that people can come close, see the photographs, and learn a little bit about this species, and little by little start to raise awareness and create conscience about what these species are going through, their threats, and how we can help them. I don't want the project to only stop in educating people, but also educating them on what little actions they can take to better both our lives as humans in urban environments and the lives of the wildlife. So it's been a journey, it's been quite an adventure, but the project has slowly gained momentum and a lot of strength. Actually, it's also inspired many others to do similar projects, which I think is nice. And well, it's still there. So yeah.
That is fantastic. I can't tell you how happy it makes me to hear about a project like this, because we so often, I mean, I work in the world of conservation and protected areas, right? And protected areas for a long time were these areas far away from where humans live, and we're making them a fortress. We're fencing them off and saying that's nature, and over here where we live, that's not nature. And that narrative has had a lot of harmful side effects on society for the last several hundred years. And I am really pleased to hear about this initiative to really show how connected the natural world is within urban centers. Urban centers can so often seem like they're not nature, right? They're the non-human nature isn't as obvious and present in urban centers, but it is certainly still there. And it's so great to have an initiative that's focused on showing that. And then, like you said, having the call to action with it, or the next steps. Here's how you can help support endangered endemic species that are trying really hard to live in these urban centers, but we're not doing a very good job of helping them out.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I think using photography as the means through which to communicate that message is so powerful. And you mentioned, literacy rates, and photography is something that most people can engage with. Not everyone, but most people can see a photograph and will feel something from it. We are humans, we are emotional creatures, and we have this inherent connection to art and to visual media. So really, really great to hear about the initiative. And I'd love to hear a bit about what kind of successes maybe you've seen from it so far, or any outcomes that you've seen from this initiative that I'm sure you've poured a lot of time and love into over the last several years.
Sure. Yeah. As I was telling you, it's been quite an adventure. It's had its challenges, but it's been very gratifying also. So some of the results I've seen is, children seem to be much more aware, empathetic about these animals. The teachers from the schools that I've visited have contacted me afterwards and say that that's all the students are talking about, and how their science projects, they want to focus their science projects on this wildlife. And I think that's fantastic.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, it's also very sweet. And I've also seen a change in some of the authorities here in the city. They have actually been the ones to contact me for further events regarding the project, or for more talks and workshops about the project. And also a lot of the venues for artistic projects here in the city are mostly reserved for the elite, or the kind of artsy projects, contemporary art, or just for bringing over foreign exhibits from great artists like Van Gogh and stuff like that. But they had never before been open to hosting kind of artistic work that is also mixed with environmental issues. And my project, the exhibits about this project, kind of like started this trend, so to speak, because I have now seen these same venues contact and open a lot more of these doors to environmental artists, to say a thing, maybe that's a new term that could catch on. And I think that's great, because as you say, as humans, we are connected with art. Art is a universal language. It can help us learn a lot more in a much easier way also, and it's memorable. So it's like shooting a bird with two stones, And yeah, and that you didn't used to see that before here in the city, and now I've seen all these kinds of projects, small and big, and from known artists, but also unknown artists, that's amazing. I mean, because there's no point in doing projects like this if you're going to be, envious and jealous and want everything for yourself. That's not the point. I mean, we can all raise our voices. We can all use our art, our talents, our knowledge to share them with the world and do a difference. So yeah, those are some of the biggest results I've seen. And yeah, I think it's a good start.
I would think so too. It certainly sounds like it. And I can't help but think of the theme of this Nature for All Love Fest that we're hosting right now, and really these love stories of how we've all fallen in love with nature. With the world becoming more and more urbanized and more of us living in urban centers, our love stories are likely to be with urban wildlife. And I mean, I think of my own love story, and I grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada, and it's a pretty big city, and I just love salamanders. I thought salamanders were the greatest little creature I had ever seen. I would go looking under rocks for them in my backyard, and they are an urban species who's trying to navigate living in these urban areas as well as outside and of urban areas, more in the woods, but you do find them all throughout the city. And I don't know if I'd be working as an environmental conservationist in my career if it hadn't been for my interactions with urban wildlife species that I could find in my immediate surroundings at home. And I think getting to amplify that narrative and share photos of the extreme biological diversity in a city like Mexico City is so critical. And I can only imagine the results that you'll see from this kind of project in the years ahead. I commend you for all the work into it. I know it can be a labor of love, these longer term photographic series, but it sounds to me like there's a lot of potential for this to truly change people's lives and relationships with nature.
Thank you, Erin. I really appreciate it. And yeah, you're right. I mean, getting these connections with nature, these experiences with wildlife that go a lot farther than visiting a zoo can be even more inspiring, because they, as you say, they become personal to you. And
yeah,
and there's a saying that we have as photographers, that you cannot protect what you don't know, and you will also not protect what you don't love. So love for nature, I think that's the key for breaking with the apathy that's surrounded our society towards nature. Because I read somewhere, it's a quote, I don't remember who said it, I'm sorry, but they said that the biggest threat to biodiversity is not pollution, it's not climate change, it's apathy. It's not caring about what happens to our planet. So we have to make people care. And yeah, there's no better way to care than learning to love something new.
Amazing. Yeah. And photography and art generally is such a powerful way to speak to that. So
Yes.
I'm so glad that we have you here to tell us a little bit about how that's going. And so I'd love to hear, in the the 5 or so minutes we have left, I'd love to hear a little bit more about other photography projects you've worked on that you feel have had an impact on environmental conservation and stewardship, or maybe any projects you have coming down the line as a photographer as well. Some things beyond the Mexico City project would be great to hear about.
Sure. In regards to the Mexico City project, right now I'm focusing on a small series about the local heroes that are promoting conservation, restoring small urban parks or even larger ones, because normally the media, that's still something that I want to work on, for the media to notice these heroes. So sometimes as a conservation photographer, you also have to develop other skills other than your photography. So for the last 2 or so years, I've been developing my writing skills, because even though a photograph can say more than 1,000 words, you sometimes need to accompany your photo with 1,000 words to make your story a bit more powerful. So I've been writing small articles about these people, and also about conservation efforts in other parts of Mexico. For example, in 2021, I visited the Raise the River Alliance, which is on northern Mexico. It's an alliance between the USA and Mexico to revive the Colorado River's delta, which has dried up because of all the things that come from the USA, you know, the dams, the water shortages, all that, that also impact things here in Mexico. So that's a very hopeful project because of the way that they are restoring nature over there. And more recently, I visited some of the indigenous communities in Oaxaca here in Mexico, on the southern part of the country, where, you know, these communities are they live in a way that is known here in Mexico as usos y costumbres, which mean that they are more like independent from the government. They still run everything with their own kind of government, so to speak, their own authorities that go way back, you know, with their traditions, their ancient culture, which is actually very intimately connected with nature. So it's very interesting learning from them because they know a lot more about, for example, sustainable forestry than any scientist out there, because of their ancestral knowledge, which is something that we also need to learn from and that we need to respect. And inside their forests that are very well conserved, very well protected, you can find endemic species, very unique species to the world, that you will not find anywhere else. So looking at what they are doing, how they are trying to educate also visitors, their stories about fighting against mining projects, other kinds of touristic mega projects, for example. That's very inspiring, and those are also stories that are not being told by the main media. And I think those stories need to be told because they are not only nature love stories, they are very inspirational and educational. And they just raise the hope, because sometimes, you know, with climate change and everything that we are living, nihilism and desperation can really get over you, and you can sometimes feel like there's nothing left to do and we are doomed. But these kinds of stories actually make you realize that there's still a lot that we can be doing and that we should be doing. And yeah, I think it's like fuel for our hearts, for our minds, and for our determination to keep pushing through to save our planet.
Wow, what a strong inspirational note. I think I don't want to deviate too much from that narrative, because I think that is such an incredibly important takeaway from your art and from the work that you do. And I know we just have a couple of minutes left before we wrap up. So I wonder, you've touched on a lot of the themes throughout this conversation, but I wonder if you were speaking to a budding young photographer who loved wildlife, loved nature, really wanted to affect change for nature conservation, and they said, oh, well, I don't know, can I really make a difference in using photography? What would you say to them? How would you tell them how impactful photography really can be for nature conservation around the world?
Oh, that's a good question. I would first tell them to study a lot, not only about photography, but about biology, ecology, and especially all the scientific information about a certain species or ecosystem or environmental issue that they want to address. After that, I would tell them to drop the shyness. I used to be very shy. It was very hard for me to approach people and talk with them, to hear their stories. But, you know, leave that on the side. Just do it. Even if your questions may seem dumb, they probably are not. And these people are going to be very happy to talk with someone that is interested in what they are doing. As I was telling you, learn how to write, because writing articles and putting together a photo story will be much more easier to publish, and it will reach a larger audience than just individual images posted on social media. Social media is a great tool for raising awareness, but it has its limits. You also have to use the traditional media, magazines, newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, all like that. And learn to collaborate with others. Sometimes we want to be heroes. We want fame, and ego gets over us. There's no place for that in conservation. No, this is teamwork only. So learn to collaborate with others. And little by little, you're going to see people flocking towards your work. And also, when you post an image to social media, don't just post an image and say hummingbird. no, write a caption, write something about it, write a story. The context is very important. That's what's actually going to have people flock into your work. In 2019, when I won the National Geographic contest, the National Geographic travel contest in the nature category, I think what also helped my photo win was not only the photo, but the caption that I wrote about the photo, the story behind it, and the story about it. So that's also very important. And try to look at hundreds and thousands of photos by amazing photographers every day, because that way you are going to strengthen your own vision, your own style, and your own way of doing photographs, and you will know what you need to do to stand out, the kind of photographs that are not being done. Because when you start looking at all these images, you will see that some of the styles, some of the species that are photographed are always the same ones. So you can see like that, okay, so no one is photographing, I don't know, an endemic salamander that lives in my community. I'm going to do it. So do it. Go and do it. And start local. Every single community, every single neighborhood, even in urban centers, as you were saying, Erin, there are stories that need to be told. So you don't have to go to Africa. For the longest time when I just started this career, I thought, oh man, I'm never gonna get my work out there if I don't photograph an elephant, but I don't have enough money to go to Africa. Most of us don't. So focus on what you have near to your home. Even Jane Goodall says so. Start locally, start small. And that way you're going to inspire others, create networks, and do a lot more impact than just by trying to focus on only megafauna or only on the Amazon, because that's also something we tend to think that. So deforestation is only happening in Brazil with the Amazon forest. No, deforestation could be happening a few blocks from your home, so you can go and document that. That's also why it's so important to study about every kind of thing going on around your community. So yeah, it's a lot. Doing conservation photography. Yeah, I mean, photography, especially for conservation, is not only about photography. It encompasses a lot of things, and you have to be ready for that. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Wow, fantastic, Tamara. Thank you so much. That is a jam-packed amount of advice in just a few minutes. I really am looking forward to spreading that around with young people and maybe older people who are looking for a career change and want to have meaningful impact. I think you really have given some great advice and clear steps on how you can get into nature photography. And we've already talked about how powerful it really is for affecting change. So I will leave it on that incredibly inspiring note. Thank you so much for your time today and for coming and having this conversation and making it so clear how important these nature love stories are. Visual stories and, like you said, the captions that go along with them are also incredibly important and powerful. So thanks for being here. With that, I will let you go, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and look forward to following along with all of your photographic work.
Thank you, Erin, for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure, and I hope you have a beautiful day as well.
Thanks, Tamara.
Fantastic. What a quadrilogy of speakers you've had over the last hour and a half. And by the way, I've been bringing up, of course, the website for Tamara's amazing work, her Instagram page, but I will highlight a photograph of hers just so that people can see. You said you were checking them out beforehand. Her website has all of these, but like, look at that. It's just...
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so
I wish I could
powerful.
take pictures like that, but this is the advice that we've gotten from Tamara with her photographic background, with all the people that we've had today. Start somewhere, start local, do what you can, whether it's painting, photography, doing a shoreline cleanup, what have you. Those small things make a really, really big impact. And it's been really a thrill being in the background, getting to hear that, and with people listening from all the way in Liberia for your program there. And so it's been a great time.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jesse. This was fantastic. What an amazing suite of speakers today.
Well, we've got one more block to come in just about a little under an hour now. I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful host with us today. And I'll highlight some links to wrap up and let you go.
Thanks, Jesse.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. For folks that want to tune in, again, we are going live to the Nature for All YouTube channel, the Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants YouTube channel. We've got just a few more programs to wrap up this incredible My Nature Love Story event. If you want to check out the Love Fest, generally 2 weeks of incredible events from around the globe, all sorts of our network partners at the Nature for All community, check out the Love Fest website below and contribute your own love story. If you want to go on social media, share with hashtag My Nature Love Story. We'd love to hear from you as well. Till then, head to the Nature for All site. Go check out more of the great stuff going on and the amazing people and organizations you've had the chance to hear from over the last day and a half. And I will let you go there. Have a wonderful afternoon.